Really not very excited about this sermon tonight. Just tell you up front, it's so negative. And what we're going to discuss is not encouraging to me. It's not uplifting. It's not, and I like that. Not what I'm going to say is going to be true. It will be true, but and truth is not always, I'm afraid, encouraging and upbuilding to us. But embrace it, will you? Will you listen with and study with me and get in the middle of this? Jesus has told a parable. He's been telling parables, shifted in his whole ministry, which is taking place in Matthew 13. And the second parable that he tells, of course, is this parable, which is the parable of the tares, the wheat and the tares, which actually begins at verse 24. And as he tells this parable, of course, there's the owner of the field. He comes, he sows good seed, and in the night hour, an enemy comes and sows tares. And after the sowing is done, they both begin to grow, and of course, they recognize that there's wheat and tares in the same field. And the servants are very upset about that, and they come to the owner of the field and say, hey, let us clean this out. We'll go in, grab those tares, yank them out of here, and be done with them. And the owner says, no, you can't do that, because if you do that, the tares, in the process of pulling the tares out, you will hurt my wheat. And you're going to injure the wheat, because the wheat and the tares are so similar. In fact, the tare is a wheat that's been twisted, and it looks just like a wheat, and you can't tell and get it still. It's so grown that which is which, and you're going to end up destroying some of my wheat, and I just can't have that. So in order to protect the wheat, leave them alone, and we'll just let this whole thing grow, and it'll come to a fruition, it'll come to a completion, it'll come to a harvest. And the whole parable seems to be on that harvest idea, that everything's in a progression, everything's moving in a direction, that this is not this moment. It is about this moment, but not just about this moment, but it's about all the moments, because you don't stay where you are, and there's a whole progression, and by the time you come to the harvest, the owner's not mad, the owner's not really ticked off, he doesn't come in anger and say, I've had it up to here with the tares. It's just that, wow, everything's full grown, and it's got to be dealt with. So the harvest is here, and we're headed for a harvest. Now, when he got done with that parable, of course, the disciples in verse 36 came to him and said, after the multitude had gone away, came to Jesus and said, hey, explain this parable to us. And Jesus gave this explanation, which I again want to read tonight for you. Listen closely. He answered and said to them, he who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Therefore, as the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out of his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and those who practice lawlessness, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Now, as you look at this, there's 5 main characters. Some are more important than others, obviously. But there's 5 main characters that are participating and are a part of the story and make up the structure of it. One, obviously, is the owner of the field, which is given to you in the opening statement in verse 24. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. So there's an owner of the field. He's the prime mover. He's the shaker. He's the owner. He's got the finances. He's got the plan. He's going to come in and sow seed. It's his field. He's got the overwhelming plan, that he's got the destiny. He's in charge of the harvest. He's directing the servants. He's going to handle the angel thing. Everything is under his control. And if you want to know who that is, he says in verse 37, when he explained this, he who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. So obviously this prime mover, this one who's in charge, this one who will not be overcome, is the Son of Man himself, which would be Jesus, obviously. So Jesus is in charge. So the one you're up against is Jesus. And obviously that would include the entire Trinity that's involved in this plan, but Jesus is the representative of the Trinity in the parable. Now the second character that you've got, which is, I was going to say equal to that, but not equal at all, is the enemy. And you'll note in verse 25, but while men slept, his enemy came. His enemy. The enemy of who? Oh, the enemy of the prime mover, the one who owns the field, the Son of Man, the Jesus. His enemy. So there is an enemy, and he has one that he cannot stand, and that is Jesus. We've really been getting into that heavy. I have really been getting into that heavy in the book of Acts, because there's one thing that the devil can't stand, and that's Jesus. Absolutely will not tolerate Jesus. He can take Buddha, but he can't stand Jesus. The devil cannot stand Jesus. He can stand doctrine, he can stand church, he can stand whatever, but he can't take Jesus. He just cannot stand him. It's an enemy. That's really significant. Just spills through the whole scriptures that Jesus has an enemy. And that encourages me, because I got lots of them. But here's this one that is his enemy. And it says he came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. So he's not a prime mover. He's not in the position of authority. He just came and messed things up. And of course, as we got into this, we understood that in the language of the parable, the enemy has done this destructive element of implanting tares, but the tares are not a separate seed that's been sown. They are a wheat that's been twisted in the growth. And the Jews would have all understood that. But the enemy is behind this. And the twisting and the poison of the tares is all because of the wicked one. The wicked one. And if you say, well, who is the wicked one? Well, he tells you in verse 39, these are the words of Jesus. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. So come to Jesus and ask him if he believes in the devil. Well, obviously, he does. So there's no question about that prime individual who's called the devil. Now, the third in the passage, of course, third character in the passage are the servants. And there's a little confusion in my mind about the servants. You'll note in verse 27, so the servants of the owner came. And then when you go down to verse 29, but he said, no, lest you gather up the tares, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At the time of the harvest, I will call the reapers. Like the servants are not the same as the reapers. And he never describes in his explanation of the parable, he doesn't describe the servants. So you figure this out for me and tell me what the answer is. But he never describes the servants. But he does describe the reapers, which are given to you in verse 39. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is of the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Now, whether the servants are the angels, I don't know. But the reapers are definitely the angels. So they're going to be in the wrap-up of this whole thing. 3 characters. Now, when you come to the last 2 characters, there's 5. When you come to the last 2 characters, they seem to be the characters around which the whole parable revolves. In other words, the meaning and what he's trying to say to you, what he's trying to communicate to us, teach us, revolves around these last 2 characters. And the last 2 characters, the first one, of course, is the good seed. And you'll note in verse 24 again, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed. And obviously that's the wheat. And when you come down to the who that really is, you go to verse 38, it says, the field is the world, the good seeds are the sons of the kingdom. And we spent a lot of time on that sons idea. In other words, it's a birthing thing. See, this is about life, people. This is about God wants to take his life, implant it into you, and birth you, father you, shape you. Spill what he is, his DNA, his character, his nature causing you. So you begin to act like, look like, think like, move like him. And it's interesting that this one who is the owner of the field is very protective. Oh, this is encouraging. Maybe this is better than I thought. This, you see, he's the owner of the field, and he's very protective of his wheat. Me. You. You realize in the book of Job, the devil came and said, I'll handle Job. And he said, no, you won't. And the devil couldn't do one single thing to Job without God's permission. Why? He's protective of his wheat. Hey, come on. Live in confidence. Everything's good. Come on. Hey, relax. It's all okay. Why? Because you have a protector, and God cares about his wheat. And he has a divine plan. He's the owner of the field. And hey, he's not just throwing seed out the window. I mean, this is a plan, folks. In fact, as you get into the whole thing, you discover that the plan is so overwhelming that it is an eternal plan, because eternity is in, the harvest is here, the reapers have come, whole thing is wrapped up, and he has an eternal plan for those. The righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. See, this is all, wow, this is all huge, absolutely huge. And he oversees this whole thing, and he has this, there's a final destination, and there's a, wow. You want to be a son, good seed. Oh, there's another, the last character, the tares. And this is so negative. Who's responsible for the tares? Well, the devil. And when he comes to describe the tares, you'll note in verse 38, the field is the world, the good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. So as there was a birthing that took place within the wheat that makes them sons of the kingdom, and God wants to birth you and put his life within you, his DNA within you, shape you, your attitude, your mind, give you his nature, merge with you, while all of that's going on within the sons of the kingdom, likewise within the tares, the nature, the attitude, the flow of all that makes up the tare, the poisonous, the destructiveness, the attitudes, the flow of, it's all about the nature of the wicked one. And you're being birthed. You're being birthed by this wicked one. And it's interesting when you compare these two, man, that would be something to put out on a board, wouldn't it, the comparison? You realize over here, God is protective of his wheat, not the wicked one. He didn't give a rip about the tares. In fact, it says, while men slept, his enemy, the devil, came and sowed the tares among the wheat and went his way. He didn't hang around. He doesn't come out daily looking at the field. He isn't interested in, oh, what's happening to my tares? He doesn't give a rip. See, he isn't protecting. He isn't guarding. He's not involved in the final destination. He's not got a plan. He's not working things out for any tare. Interesting contrast. So the idea tonight is, what we're getting into tonight is, who are these tares? What are the tares really like? The sons of the wicked one. What are they all about? And I want to discuss that. There's three ideas. We're going to start tonight with the first one, and the first one is property. And what I mean by property is the content. So what we want to do is take a tare, rip it down the middle, open it up, and see what's inside of it. What property makes it up? What's the content of it? What makes up a tare? The son of the wicked one. It's interesting that Jesus, in his explanation, describes them. And I was going to say sometimes it's like looking in a mirror, but I hope not. Here's his description. Listen to this. Verse 41. The Son of Man will send out his angels. They will gather out of his kingdom all things that offend. There's his first description. Offend, tares, offend. Number two, those who practice. So they're practicing. And what do they practice? Lawlessness. Lawlessness. So those are the three ideas of description. We're going to look at the first one, offend. We've dealt with this idea of offend before, and we're not talking about your odor, although that is. But we're way beyond that. See, this offend idea. It's the Greek word scandalon. It's where we get our word scandal. It's a very strong word. And he says, if you want to know the property, what makes up the content, what's going on inside the tare, the poisonous, wicked tare, what characterizes him, he is offending. He's a scandal. It's really an interesting thought. Number one, state. It's a state of being. In other words, he's not talking about, look what he did. No, we're not discussing that. There's no description of any activity. In the whole parable, people, there's no description of any activity. Come on, that's got to mean something. When he comes to describe the wicked ones, the sons of the wicked ones, the tares, the poisonous, evil tares, what does he describe? He doesn't describe anything they do because it's not an activity. It's an inward state within the being. And I know if you've been around, you're yawning saying, good night, we hear that every time we turn around. Well, I know, but it's all over the scriptures so consistently. How do you not talk about this thing all the time? See, I wish this was about things, about activities and doing activities. Then we could really pound you for what you do. I'd like that. Whip the socks off of you for what you do. Make you feel bad because of what you do. Of course, then I'd feel bad for what I do. So it's all about the doing. No, it's not about the doing. See, it's about what you are in your nature. See, a tare is not a tare because he does bad things. He does bad things because he's a tare. That's why you look at the little kid and say, you tare. Just kidding. You got to come to grips with that. Because it's a state of poison deep within the inner being. He's a son of the wicked one, which is all about DNA and nature, and he characterizes him by his inward state. So the test tonight is not to bring me in here and list out all the things I've done this week and say, now, are you a tare or are you a weed? That isn't the test. The deal is you bring me in and you take a knife and slip me down the middle and just open me up and expose what I am in my thought process and in my inner heart and desires, and that tells you what I am. That's this passage. Now, it's interesting that the scandalon, the idea of that is as we've said in other studies, is a stick in a death trap. That's the word. That's what the word means, stick in a death trap. In other words, to be offensive is to establish a trap. Now, it's not the wire in the cage. It's not that. It's not the bait in the cage. It's not that. It's not the door that's in the cage. It's not that. It's the stick. It's the trigger. It's the lever. It's the whatever that holds everything in place, in tension, so when the animal comes in and bumps whatever and wham, you got him. In a mouse trap, it's that wire that comes out, comes over the spring, you pull the spring down, you bring that wire over and don't let go, it'll mace your finger. So you hook it right under and it holds everything in tension. That wire, he bumps the teeth, got him. See, it's the stick. That's how he describes a tare. Isn't that hilarious? See, it isn't what he does, it's who he is. It's the position he holds within the framework of all the activities. That's what he's describing here. You see, and he is absolutely, see the stick in the death trap guy, he's absolutely essential to the devil. Now, I said the devil didn't have a plan. Yeah, what I meant by that was he didn't have a long-range plan. He didn't have an eternal plan. See, the devil has one idea for me, and that is he wants to take me and prop me up in a certain position and way and use me as a stick in a death trap so others will be alert in and smash, he's got him. And destruction takes place. Which brings us to the second idea here. If you got that one. Look like you did. Okay, there's this state idea. In other words, it isn't about what you do. We're not talking about that. It isn't about, well, you drink. We're not talking about that. Well, you take drugs. We're not talking about that. Well, you're into pornography. We're not talking about that. And see, that may be involved in all of it. That may be expressions of it, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the nature that's within the tare. And it's an offensive nature. And here's what's so interesting, which is the second idea, the sequel. It's always focused on others. That's the idea of the offense. It's focused on others. Now, we already indicated that, but let's really expand that. See, the whole focus of the tare and what the devil wants to do with the sons of the wicked one is to destroy others. Boy, this is so negative, isn't it? See, the whole focus of what a tare is all about is what influence he is going to have on others. See, the tare doesn't say, well, it's a private thing and I can do it if I want to and I'm not hurting anybody and it's just my business. No, a tare's never like that. A tare is always alluring, pulling, bringing others in, trapping. He's a stick in a death trap, people. He's always working with the bait. Come on. He's always pulling. Wouldn't it be interesting to gauge your whole life? Oh, brother, this is awful. Wouldn't it be interesting to gauge your whole life by the influence you have had on others? And what you have created and caused, prompted and promoted, got them into, pulled them to, attracted them. Do you understand the sons of the kingdom are opposite of that? Well, they're not opposite, but, well, yeah, they are opposite. No, they're after others too, but their whole influence is different. Promoting, building. Tare is always destructive, alluring, trapping, destroying. And ladies and gentlemen, you never, what did I say? Never live in sin without influencing and destroying those around you. You never do that alone. You cannot. It's the very nature of it. Jesus was really strong on this. In Matthew chapter 18, he used this word offend, I think, like 5 times. This idea of being a stick in a death trap. And his disciples, full of self-centeredness, came and said, which one of us gets to be number one? Which one of us gets to be first in the kingdom? And Jesus looked at him and said, guys, you're full of yourself. You're becoming a stick in a death trap. You're all mad at each other. You're all, and it's just, whoa, you're destroying each other. And he sat down and got this kid over and said, hey, unless you become like this little child and give up your rights, your self-centeredness, your rights to yourself, which is the core nature of a tare. Unless you give that up, what's going to happen, he said, was your self-centeredness, who you are, in your own selfishness and self-centeredness and got to have your own way. In the midst of all of that, what's going to happen is your self-centeredness is going to produce handles. And the devil's going to come along and grab a hold of those handles. He's going to manipulate you into place, and you're going to be a stick in a death trap, and a little one is going to be lured in, and wham! You're going to destroy little ones. And you know what he said? He said, you would be better to get a millstone, get a boat, get in the boat, get a millstone, put it in the boat. Millstone is this huge rock with a hole in the middle, and it grinds, and you can't even lift the thing up. Take 15 men just to lift the thing up. Take that thing, go out in the middle of the sea, the deepest part, put a rope around it, around your neck, and in. You'd be better. No, that's not the punishment for offending a little one. He said, you would be better off to do that than you would to offend a little one. In other words, alluring somebody in, trapping somebody, whoo. I thought about this in relationship to, what we're trying to do here. I see guys all the time in jail, and they'll say, I need a safe place. I said, what do you mean? I can't go back to my friends. If I get out of here, I can go back. I can go back where I came from and go back to my friends, go back to my old environment. I'll be right back in the middle of everything I was into before, and I'll be in trouble again, and I need a safe place. And I look them right in the eye, guys, and I say, woo, we've got a safe place for you. Woo-hoo! Come on over. We'll house and feed you. We'll surround you. We'll have classes at night. We'll have church together, worship. Safe place. We are, aren't we? See, there wouldn't be any of us who would be sticks and death traps and alluring and, come on, influencing. There wouldn't be any tares. See, that's the issue of this. That's the issue here. And he's really strong on this. If you look at verse 28, he said, an enemy has done this. The servant said to him, do you want us then to go and gather them up? We'll just stomp in here and tear out those stinking tares and we'll have a safe place. He said, no. Why are the servants wanting to do that? Because tares are destructive to young wheat. And if there's anything in my life that I'm really concerned about, it's that I would never, ever, ever, oh my, crushes me to think about it. That I would be a hindrance, and I know. You can't. People are people, but wow. Could I be full of Jesus? And could all the poison be taken out? I don't want to be a stick in a death trap. What do you do with a stick? Well, if you get enough of them, you can roast hot dogs. So he says, going to be a big day. We're going to have a big fire. Roast hot dogs and party. Sons of the kingdom are going to party. And if you say, well, hey, I don't want to, man, I don't want to hurt, wow. Only one shot. You can't be a tear. Don't be a tear. You can't be a tear. And an interesting dynamic of this is that you can't mix it. You can't be both. You can't Well, I got a good heart. No, you don't. Not if you're a tear. You don't. You're poison. Well, I do some good things. No, you don't. Because even your good things are poisonous. See, you only got one chance. You got to let him birth, change, bring about. Wow. Would you? Yeah, I will. Jesus, love you. You're protective of your wheat. Thank you. You have a plan. Oh, thank you. And the devil has never done anything for me but destroy my life and everybody around me. The devil has never, I look at it, God. The devil just ruins families, ruins marriages, ruins lives, destroys health, just beats the living daylights out of it. It's just, and everybody around us, and allures and traps and destroys. I want that in the name of Jesus. I want that eliminated from my life. I don't want any part of that. I want every bit of influence in my life to be for good and to prosper and to help and to build. And in the name of Jesus, I want to be done with tearing down and destroying and stepping on and ruining and undermining. And I want to be an instrument of light and strength and hope. And come on, Jesus, you got to do it in my life. So God, whatever you need to do in this boy tonight to get that one done, and my attitudes and flow of my life and whatever you want to get done, whatever you have to do to get that done, whew, no hesitation. I'm done with destruction. So work on me tonight, I pray thee. Moments of seeking, moments of seeking.